Welcome to the first of our lace tutorials. In this we're going to work a 2-stitch eyelet to the right of your brioche knit stitches, so just before them. The brioche eyelet creates a lovely defined eyelet in your work, so perfect for lace. It also creates 2 stitches in your work. It is usually balanced with a series of decreases, but what we're going to do here is we're just going to work and practice those stitches. You don't require any special stitches, you just need to work to where you want to place the eyelet. And in this case that is after a slip one yarn over to create it on the right of your brioche knit. I've worked the setup rows as per the swatch pattern for this class, and I'm now going to work the first eyelet row. I'm working with my light coloured yarn because I'm working on the light side of my work. So I'm just going to work regular brioche out to the point where I want to include my eyelet stitch. So here I'm going to work my eyelet. The most important thing about this is it is worked as a double yarn over, but you must remember to include the yarn over of the slip stitch as well. So as you yarn forward, create your shawl, you then need to do 2 additional yarn overs, and that's the key to this stitch. If you're doing it after a slip one yarn over, you need to make sure that you still go around twice with your double yarn over. It's really easy to forget the second yarn over in this stitch. And then after you've done your 2 yarn overs, you do your brioche knit. And then you continue on to where we want to add the second double yarn over. So here again, I'm coming to the slip stitch before, I yarn forward, I slip my stitch. And here again, to create your yarn overs, after you've created your shawl, bring the yarn through the needles to the front, over the needle, and then back through again, and then you're going to go over the needle next time to brioche knit your next stitch. So here we go again, bring your yarn forward through the needles, that's 1 yarn over as you go over the needle, and then 2 yarn overs as you go back over again, having come forward through the needles. You're then ready to brioche knit your next stitch. So that's the key to it. After yarn over, so a slip one yarn over, you do 2 yarn overs, not just 1. So again, yarn forward, slip your stitch as usual, create your shawl, come forward, yarn over, and then come forward again and yarn over, and that's your double yarn over eyelet. You're then ready to brioche knit your next stitch, and then you're ready to work to the end of the piece. So the key to remember here is that, as with most brioche stitches increasing or decreasing, it increases by 2, so multiples of 2. And that's key because you want to keep that slip one, work one, slip one, work one pattern throughout. So here you come and you can see your 2 yarn overs are going to be your 2 new stitches, and you're going to be able to see how in the next pass of this row how you are going to work those stitches. But you can see that you can see already that it keeps the positioning correct, so you have your slip one, work one, slip one, work one already. So as with working brioche flat, we are now going to move the yarn back to the start of the row to do the second pass of that row with my dark colour. So in this case I'm going to be slipping and I'm going to be brioche purling because it's my dark yarn on my light side. So in this case I'm going to start, and then I need to account for how I'm working my double yarn over, and that's the key. And as with a lot of the lace work that you do in brioche, it's actually not the row where you make the eyelets, it's the row afterwards where you have to concentrate to make sure that you get that right. So now I knit my selvage stitch, I bring my yarn forward to brioche purl, as that was the slip stitch previously, and now I am here and ready to go. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a slip stitch. So I slip my stitch, the first part of my yarn over, being really careful not to take the whole loop with me when I do that. You then bring your yarn over and all the way around the needle as if you were slipping ready to purl, which is what you're going to do next. And now you're going to purl into the second loop of your yarn over, and then you purl it, and it's a regular purl because it hasn't been shawled previously. And then I'm on to my next stitch, which I'm going to slip one yarn forward. My yarn is in the correct position, ready to purl, because that's exactly how it is after a purl. So I slip one yarn over, then I purl, so I brioche purl my next stitch, then I slip my next stitch, yarn over, and then I purl my stitch here. So I brioche purl and I'm back to my eyelet again. So here again you see the two loops of the double yarn over. I'm going to slip one, yarn over to create my shawl, stitch on that, then I bring it forward, and then I'm going to purl that stitch. So I purl it. Now it can feel quite loose, but don't worry, just go with the flow of it, do it slowly. And then I'm going to slip one yarn over, brioche purl, and then I'm going to slip one yarn over again, brioche purl my two stitches together, so brioche purl these, and then as I come to the loops, so my double yarn over again, slip it slowly, take your yarn over, then I'm going to purl my next stitch, and use your fingers as well. You can hold the loop on the yarn or on the needle as you need to. Don't be afraid to use your your fingers and stabilize it. It can feel a little bit loose, and that is perfectly normal because you've just created a large hole in your knitting. So that's a perfectly normal feeling. So now once you've worked all of those in the row, you can now have a look at it. And what you can see is it creates these really great eyelets in your work. So they're very, very defined. So if you imagine when you do a brioche knit, yarn over brioche knit, it creates a small, delicate hole in your knitting, which is nice, but it's not lace style. Whereas this is a much lacier look. And when you see this blocked out, you can really see how they look in the knitting. Note how they are on the right of the column of stitches, so they're on the right of the brioche knit, and that's really important because where you position these in your work dictates what it looks like as well, because these aren't quite even. We'll look at the drop purl stitch, the release purl stitch later on. And now you can also see as well, so it's created that, so you've added your two extra stitches as well, and that creates the balance and allows you to keep working in your slip one, work one pattern that is brioche. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work another return row so that you can really see those. And this row is actually going to be very usual, we'll say. So I'm going to knit my first stitch, my selvage stitch, and then I'm going to slip one yarn over, and then I'm going to purl my stitch. So brioche purl, because I'm working with my light yarn on my dark side. And then I'm going to brioche purl again. And now we're to the eyelet stitches. And last time we purled this stitch, so we're going to just slip it and shawl it, and then we're going to purl the next stitch together. Now this is the one which feels a little bit loose as well. Make sure that you're grabbing both strands of it, and then you purl the two of those together, and then you are ready to slip your next stitch. And once you've done this, so once you've done the first pass of the row the full row afterwards, it begins to stabilize, and you can really see the eyelet, and also the stitches are much more stable because they're above the hole, but you've knit them a sufficient number of times to get that stability into them. Give yourself a chance when you are learning how to do this. It can feel a little bit funny, and if they fall off, just make sure you just pop your needle back in, position them correctly, and then purl them. The great thing about those is that they don't have any stitches underneath them, so they don't run down your work if it falls off. It just sits there. And then we're going to work to the end of this row, and we'll take another look at those eyelets. So slip one, yarn over, purl the two of those stitches, the stitch, and then work your last stitch, knit your selvage stitch, and then we can take a look at those. So now you can see those really, really well defined eyelets in your work, and that is the start of your brioche lace knitting career. So these are a really pretty stitch positioned on the right of your brioche knit. In the next video we're going to look at those that are positioned on the other side of your brioche knit, and then you can see how they balance together to create really lovely symmetrical patterns. You can create symmetrical or asymmetrical lace, and you'll see these used in different ways. The other thing I would say about these stitches as well is to get loads of practice with working them before you do them in a shawl in earnest. So there is, in the swatch for this, there is an option to continue on and do another series of eyelets to make sure that you get those. So do put lots of effort into getting these right because they look great. And one thing actually, as we watch here working through the video, is when you are working the second pass of the row afterwards, make sure that you are not going into the eyelet. Make sure that you are knitting into the actual, you're doing your brioche knit into the stitch and not into the eyelet. And that's just one last little tiny tip as you go by. It's easy to get that wrong, and it will make a mess of your eyelet. So to get loads and loads of practice with these, I encourage you to go all the way to the end of the swatch and then move on to working these eyelets on the other side of your brioche knit stitches. Now I'm going to continue working this row all the way across, and again watch how to make sure that you don't work into the eyelet, that you do work into those stitches as you go. And there you have it. You have your 3 gorgeous eyelets in your work.